3 minutes. That was how long each person had to talk during a large speed dating experiment. But for a large number of the participants, those 3 minutes barely mattered because the decision had already been made in the first 30 seconds. The experiment brought together 100 single people, 50 men and 50 women. They were divided across 5 tables. At 4 of the tables, everyone had to discuss one specific topic during every date: hobbies, movies, travel, or books. At the 5th table, they were free to talk about anything they wanted. Each date lasted 3 minutes. Then every person rated whoever had been sitting opposite them. Did they find them physically attractive? Did they feel any chemistry? Would they like to meet them again? And how quickly had they made that decision? After 3 minutes, everyone moved to a new person and started again. By the end of the night, each participant had met 10 different people, and when the results were analyzed, something stood out. 45% of the women's decisions had been made in less than 30 seconds. For the men, the number was 22%. So even though each date lasted 3 minutes, a large number of people had already made up their minds before the conversation had really begun. But the question is, what were they basing that decision on? Part of the answer appeared when the researchers compared the different conversation topics. When people talked about movies, fewer than 9% of the pairs said they wanted to see each other again. But when they talked about travel, that number doubled to 18%. And the difference wasn't that travel was somehow smarter or more interesting than movies. The problem was that talking about movies quickly pushed people into comparison mode. Action movies or musicals? Was that film brilliant or overrated? Was that actor good or not? Everyone entered the conversation with an opinion already formed and started defending it. And that showed up in the numbers. 49% of the men said they liked action movies, compared with only 18% of the women. 29% of the women said they liked musicals, compared with only 4% of the men. So instead of bringing the two people closer, the conversation often turned into an argument about taste. Travel did the opposite. People talked about great trips they had taken, places they wanted to visit, and experiences they wanted to have. The conversation moved them away from judging each other and toward imagining enjoyable things. And when someone felt good during the conversation, some of that feeling became attached to the person sitting in front of them. Put more simply, I'm enjoying myself while I'm talking to you, so being around you starts to feel better too. But the topic alone wasn't enough. The researchers also compared the people who received the highest ratings with the people who were rated poorly. The least successful people usually made one of 2 mistakes. Some used tired, rehearsed lines like, "Do you come here often?" Others tried too hard to impress the person sitting in front of them. One person said, "I have a PhD in computing." Another said, "My friend is a helicopter pilot." The problem wasn't the PhD itself. The problem was that the entire conversation turned into an advertisement. One person listed their impressive qualities, while the other person was expected to sit there and decide whether they were impressed. Even the rehearsed line didn't create a real conversation. A predictable question, a predictable answer, and then the conversation stopped moving again. The highest-rated people did something different. The highest-rated man asked, "If you were on stars in their eyes, who would you be?" And the highest-rated woman asked, "If you were a pizza topping, what would you be?" And asking someone about pizza doesn't automatically make them like you. Its value is in what happens next. In that moment, the traditional rules of conversation between two people who have only just met begin to break down. There is no correct answer they are expected to give, and there is nothing specific they are expected to prove about themselves. So both people can show more of who they really are without calculating every word or trying to present some perfect, artificial version of themselves. And moments like that are often able to communicate the greatest amount of positive emotion in the shortest amount of time. Comfort, curiosity, playfulness, and the feeling that the conversation is flowing naturally. So the value isn't in the pizza question itself. The value is that it breaks the usual structure of the conversation and allows both people to stop judging each other for a moment and actually start connecting. To find out whether a shared funny moment could genuinely change how two people felt about each other, another experiment was conducted with a group of strangers. The researchers paired them up. In the first group, each pair was asked to perform deliberately strange and funny versions of several tasks. One person was blindfolded. The other held a drinking straw between their teeth, making their voice sound ridiculous. The blindfolded person then had to learn a series of dance steps by following instructions from the person with the strange voice. In another task, the two of them had to act out a television commercial using a completely invented language. The second group completed roughly the same kinds of tasks, but in the normal version. They learned the dance steps without the blindfold, the straw, or the strange voice. And they acted out the commercial using normal language instead of an invented one. So the second group didn't simply sit there doing nothing. They also interacted and completed activities together. The difference was that one group went through an absurd, funny situation, while the other completed a serious, ordinary version of the same situation. After the experiment, the participants were asked how much they had enjoyed themselves. Naturally, the group doing the strange activities had laughed more. But then the researchers asked a more important question. Each person was asked to draw two overlapping circles to represent how close they felt to the person they had been paired with. The people who had shared the funny experience felt significantly closer to the stranger they had been paired with. They also found that person more attractive. And the point isn't that they became closer because one of them couldn't see. The straw and the strange voice didn't have some magical effect either. They were simply tools used to create a strange, shared situation. A situation that forced both people to step outside the usual form of conversation for a moment. Instead of each person focusing on themselves, what do I look like? How do they see me? What should I say to seem interesting? Both people became focused on something happening between them. Each person could see that the other had been placed in the same ridiculous situation. Neither of them could keep maintaining the perfect image they might normally try to present in front of a stranger. So the performance started to disappear, and the embarrassment stopped being something each person was suffering through alone. It became something they could laugh about together. And that is the link between the two experiments. During the first 30 seconds, the person sitting in front of you isn't only listening to the information you give them about yourself. They are quickly forming an impression of what it feels like to be around you. Do they still feel as though they are sitting opposite a stranger and evaluating them? Does the conversation feel like a job interview? Are you trying too hard to impress them? Or has the conversation allowed them to forget the evaluation for a moment, relax, interact, and be themselves? Talking about movies kept people in comparison mode. Talking about travel moved them toward an enjoyable feeling. And the successful, unusual questions broke the traditional structure of the conversation and created a shared moment between two people. So the question being answered during those first 30 seconds usually isn't, how many qualifications does this person have? Or how much have they achieved? The question is closer to, how do I feel when I'm around this person? You may have 3 minutes to talk, but in many cases, the person in front of you has already decided how they feel about you in 30 seconds.